Hey everybody, it's Eric Holmgren, your local historian, and today we are at the Bradford House with Lisa Quintal, who is one of the docents here. So Lisa, good to see you today.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about this room that we are in today?
Yes, this is one of the bedrooms in the upstairs of the Bradford House. There are 7 bedrooms in the upper level, and this one is set up as if it was Fanny and Albert's bedroom. Although we believe at the time that the house was built and they were living here, they probably occupied a larger room. There are some really good examples of some late 1800s furniture in the room, including a spindle bed and a couple of chairs, washstand, and a dresser.
Well, very good. Why is this bed called a spindle bed?
Well, if you look at the details on the headboard and the footboard, it has turnings on it that look like a spindle that would be on a spinning wheel. So it would hold the thread. So it's really interesting, and it's a really great example of that style of furniture.
Okay, and that was something that was common back in that time period.
Yes, it is. And you'll notice that it is a smaller bed. People were smaller back then. No king-size beds, not even a queen-size bed at that time.
Okay, so this would have been used as a bedroom for the family or maybe as a guest room for visitors?
Yes, yes.
What are some of the other interesting items we have here in this room?
Well, we have a lot of interesting items in this room, starting with the bed warmer that's over here on the bed. The Bradfords came here from Maine and from Massachusetts, which of course was a much colder climate. And California does get some cold snaps, so they may have actually used it. And I would like to demonstrate that for you. They would have taken the coals from the fireplace downstairs or the wood-burning fire stove in the kitchen, and they would have placed it inside the bed warmer itself and used it to warm up the bed. We also have a bureau over here that has some really interesting items that a lady would have used to get ready for the day. Back when people lived here in the 1800s, they would have gotten ready in their room. They wouldn't have gone into another bathroom to get ready in the morning. So they would have had everything they needed to get ready for their day here in the room.
Okay.
So here we have a few examples of some men and women's clothing that was of the period. And when people would come visit the Bradfords, and back in those days, they didn't have a lot of clothing like we do nowadays. Clothing was handmade, and so you only had a few pieces, and the key pieces that you would wear to travel in and in your everyday wear. But in order for them to be able to utilize those clothing in special occasions, they would dress them up with these different items. So as you can see over here, we have these starched cuffs and collars for the men, and they would actually even wear spats on their shoes. And then the women would wear these hats. This might be an everyday hat, or it might be something that a woman would wear to a special occasion like a luncheon or church. And we have these lace collars here that they would dress up their outfits with. And then we also have, I love these hat pins, and people are always amazed at how long they are because they think that they're going to stick into their head. But actually, if you think about it, when these hats would be worn over these tall hairstyles, these were used to anchor the hat into their hair actually, and keep the hat from blowing off if they were on a buggy or on a wagon, or if it was a windy day.
All right, now, what are some of the other interesting items that we have here? I see that we have this very interesting uniform, it looks like.
How could we miss that? So Mr. Bradford is well known for his contributions to forming our city here in Placentia, but what he also did was he was a part of many charitable organizations, one being the Shriners, and the temple that was in Los Angeles was called the Al-Malaika. And he was a high-ranking member. He was an ambitious man, of course, so he worked his way up the ranks there. And he had this wonderful uniform, and we're so lucky to have it. It's a perfect example of what they would have worn in that organization when they had their meetings. And we have the full regalia with the hat and the feather, and there is also a ceremonial sword that goes with it. We have the original case for it, and we have a picture of him here too that shows him all dressed up in it. And it's just a very interesting piece that we have here, and we have his hat as well.
And so the Shriners were a type of Masonic lodge. Yes. So the Masons were sort of a precursor to what a lot of our current service organizations like Rotary and Lion Clubs and things like that?
Yes, that's correct. And he, like many of the things that Mr. Bradford did, he was always a part of an up-and-coming movement or charitable organization, and that always blossomed into something bigger. And so we're very proud of having this in the house and being able to share that about him and Fanny as well, starting the Women's Roundtable Club here in Placentia, which is still an organization that's operating today.
Okay, very good. Are there any other items that you wanted to point out or think about in this room?
Yes, you know, there's also, we have a steamer trunk here in the house, and this is something I really like to talk about too and share, because when people would come to visit the Bradfords back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they came from long distances, and it was a long time traveling to get here, and they would stay for extended periods of time. So they would pack all their belongings with them to come, and these steamer trunks would have different compartments in them to hold all the different things that they would bring with them, the personal items and clothing. And we have to remember that they wore a lot of clothing back then. The women wore dresses and petticoats and hoop skirts and bustles, and so they always had to have a lot of space to pack those things in. And so when they would come off of the train and get into a wagon and cover themselves up with a coat or something to keep the dust off of them, they would be able to come here and get ready for the house. What they would do is they would carry personal items on their person, and they would be getting off of the wagon or the buggy at the house, and in order to make themselves presentable to the Bradfords, they would remove their coat, and if they still had any remaining dust on them, they had carried little brushes that they would brush their clothing off with, and they look like a little whisk brush. And it was just something that is really particular to that time that I find very interesting.
Well, and we still use clothes brushes today, and sometimes you have those sticky ones to get the lint and things like that off.
Yes.
So this is just the version 100 years ago that people had.
Yes, it is, and that's one of the things I like to connect with, is the way things were back then and the way they are today. And we have some really great examples of that here in the house.
Well, I'm sure. Well, we have our bed warmer, which I guess the equivalent would be an electric blanket or an electric heating pad.
Yes.
And we've got our little brush thing.
Yes.
We have the same equivalent today.
Yes.
With some of the other different items, what are some of the modern equivalents?
So we have on the washstand, we have a pitcher and a bowl that they would have used to get ready. The family, they would have washed up in the morning. So nowadays we do that in our own bathroom. Many homes have an attached bathroom to them where women would keep their jewelry, their cosmetics, their manicure sets, the things to do their hair, whereas back in those days they do all that in their room. So on the bureau you'll see many items that would have been used for that, to keep personal items as far as doing their hair and trimming their nails and getting ready for the day. And they would always want to be coming out of the room completely ready, dressed, ready to go to breakfast.
Okay, so like nowadays in our bathrooms we would take a shower, but back then they've got the pitcher and the wash basin, and they're really just washing maybe their face, maybe their hands, maybe their armpits, but not necessarily getting the full body wash like we do today.
Yes, exactly, because remember there's only one bathroom in the house, and the family would have shared that bathroom.
Okay, well that could be challenging when you have as many people living here. So, well, terrific. Well, it's wonderful to chat with you, and wonderful to learn more about this particular room and the family that lived here. So thank you.
Thank you very much.